All glories to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, Chapter 10, Text 110. Pandityera avadhi vakya nahi karoshane nirjane rakaye loka sabha nahi jane. Translation. Swarup Damodar was the limit of all learned scholarship, but he did not exchange words with anyone. He simply remained in a solitary place, and no one could understand where he was. Text 11. Krishna rasa tattva veta deha prema rupa sakshat mahaprabhura dvitiya swarupa. Translation. Sri Swarup Damodar was the personification of ecstatic love, fully cognizant of the transcendental mellows in relationship with Krishna. He directly represented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his second expansion. Text 112. Granta shloka gita keha prabhu pashe ane swarupa prakshya kaile pacha prabhu sune. Translation. If someone wrote a book or composed verses and songs and wanted to recite them before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would first examine them and then correctly present them. Only then would Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agree to listen. Text 113. Bhakti Siddhanta Virudha Ararasa Basa Shuniteya Haya Prabhura Chitera Ulasa. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never pleased to hear books or verses opposed to the conclusive statements of devotional service. The Lord did not like hearing rasabas, the overlapping of transcendental mellows. Purport. Bhakti Siddhanta Virudha refers to that which is against the principle of unity in diversity. Philosophically known as Achintya Bheda Bheda, simultaneous oneness and difference. Rasabas may appear to be a transcendental mellow, but actually it is not. Those who are pure Vaishnavas should avoid these things opposed to devotional service. These misconceptions practically parallel the Mayavadi philosophy. If one indulges in Mayavad philosophy, he gradually falls down from the platform of devotional service. By overlapping mellows, rasabas, one eventually becomes a prakrita sahaja and takes everything to be very easy. One may also become a member of the Baula community and gradually become attracted to material activities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to avoid Bhakti Siddhanta Virudha and rasabas. In this way, the devotee can remain pure and free from fall downs. Everyone should try to remain aloof from Bhakti Siddhanta Virudha and rasabas. Text 114. Ateva swarupa age kare parikshana sudhahaya yadi prabhure karana sravana. Translation. It was the practice for Swarup Damodar Goswami to examine all literatures to find out whether their conclusions were correct. Only then would he allow them to be heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if something impedes the execution of devotional service, it should be understood to be impure. Pure devotees of the Lord do not accept impure principles. Impure devotees accept rasabas or overlapping contradictory mellows and other principles opposed to the bhakti path. The followers of such impure principles are never accepted as pure devotees. There are many parties following the path of rasabas, and the followers are sometimes adored by ordinary men. Those who adopt the conclusions of rasabas and Bhakti Siddhanta Virudha are never accepted as devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Swarup Damodar Goswami never approved such followers as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, nor did he allow them even to meet the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 115. Vidyapati Chandidyasa Shri Gita Govinda Eitina Gite Karana Prabhura Ananda. Translation. Sri Swarup Damodar used to read the poems of Vidyapati and Chandidasa and Jayadev Goswami's Sri Gita Govinda. He used to make Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happy by singing these songs. Text 116. Sangite Gandharva Sama Shastre Brahaspati Damodara Sama Ara Nahi Mahamati. Translation. Swarup Damodar was as expert a musician as the Gandharvas, and in scriptural discussion he was just like Brahaspati, the priest of the heavenly gods. Therefore, it is to be concluded that there was no great personality quite like Swarup Damodar. Purport. Swarup Damodar Goswami was very expert in music as well as Vedic scriptures. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to call him Damodar because of his expert singing and musical skills. The name Damodar was given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and added to the name given by his sannyas guru, who is therefore known as Swarup Damodar, or Damodar Swarup. He compiled a book of music known as Sangita Damodar. Text 117. Advaita Nityanandera Parama Priyatma Srivasari Bhakta Ganera Haya Prana Sama. Translation. Sri Swarup Damodar was very dear to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, and he was the life and soul of all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. Text 118. Sei Damodara Asi Dandavataila Charane Padiya Shloka Padite Lagila. Translation. It was Swarup Damodar who came to Jagannath Puri and fell flat before the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offering him obeisances and reciting a verse. Text 119. Hilo Dunita Kedaya Visadaya Pronilad Amodaya Samyak Shastra Vibhadaya Rasadaya Chitar Tuton Madaya Sashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Marayadai Sri Chaitanya Daya Nidhe Tavadaya Bhuyad Amandodaya. Translation. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kind of material lamentation. By your mercy, everything is made pure and blissful. It awakens transcendental bliss and covers all gross material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy causes the heart to jubilate by pouring forth transcendental mellows. Your mercy always stimulates devotional service, which is full of joy. You are always glorifying the conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. Purport. This important verse quoted from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nathaka 8.10 specifically describes the Lord's causeless mercy. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in three ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he is always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. However, the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the flavor of the lotus feet of the Lord expands, and in this way a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection. from his miseries. I'm sorry. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. There are many different kinds of scripture, and by reading them one often becomes puzzled. However, when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifest in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The lamentation that inevitably accompanies material desires also vanishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifest in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with the love of Krishna. In the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. It is by the Lord's grace that all misconceptions are vanquished and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's mercy, one is finally convinced of the value of devotional service. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. Krishna-conscious activities separate one from material activities and the desire for liberation. At every step of the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. Text 120. Uttana Mahaprabhu Kaila, Uttana Mahaprabhu Kaila Alingana, Vijane Pramavesha Kaila Achetana. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised Swarup Damodar to his feet and embraced him. They both became ecstatic in love and fell unconscious. Text 121. Katakshane Vijane Stiraya Dehaila Ade Mahaprabhu Tamre Kahite Lagila. Translation. After they had both regained their patience, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to speak. Text 122. Tumiye Ashibeya Jisvapine Te Dekila Valahaila Antayena Lui Netra Paila. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I saw in a dream that you were coming, and so this is very auspicious. I have been like a blind man, but you coming here restores my vision. Text 123. Swarupa kahe Prabhu Mora Kshama Aparadha Somachari Anyatra Genu Karinu Pramara. Translation. Swarupa said, My dear Lord, please excuse my offense. I gave up your company to go elsewhere, and that was my great mistake. Text 124. Tomara charane mora nahi prema lesha Tomachari papi muni denu anya desha. Translation. My dear Lord, I do not even possess a trace of love at your lotus feet. If I did, how could I go to another country? I am therefore a most sinful man. Text 125. Munito ma chadila, tumi more na chadila, Ripapasa gale bandi, charane hanila. Translation. I gave up your company, but you did not give me up. By your merciful rope, you have bound me by the neck and brought me back again to your lotus feet. Text 126. Tabe swarupa kailani taraya charana vandana Nityananda Prabhu Kaila Prema Alingana. Translation. Swarup Damodar then worshipped the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda in turn embraced him in the ecstasy of love. Text 127. Jagadanda Jagadananda Mukunda Shankara Sarvambhoma Sabhashange Yata Yogya Harila Milana. Translation. After worshipping Nityananda Prabhu, Swarup Damodar met Jagadananda, Mukunda, Shankara, and Sarvambhoma, as was befitting. Text 128. Paramananda Purira Kaila Charana Vandana Puri Goshani Tandre Kaila Preme Alingana. Translation. Swarup Damodar also offered his worshipful prayers at the lotus feet of Paramananda Puri, who in return embraced him in ecstatic love. Text 129. Mahaprabhu Diratamre Nivritte Vasagara Jalhari Paricharya Lagi Dula Eka Kinkara. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then gave Swarup Damodar residence in a solitary place and ordered one servant to serve him with a supply of water and other necessities. Text 130. Aradina Sarvambhoma Adi Bhakta Shange Asiya Echena Mahaprabhu Krishna Katarange. Translation. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat with all the devotees headed by Sarvambhoma Bhattacharya, and they discussed the pastimes of Krishna. Text 131. Henakale Govindera Haila Agamana Dandavakari Kahe Vinaya Vachana. Translation. At that time, Govinda appeared on the scene, offered his respectful obeisances, and spoke submissively. Text 132. Isvara Purira Bhritya Govinda Moranama Puri Goshanira Agyana Ainuto Marasana. Translation. I am the servant of Isvara Puri. My name is Govinda, and following the orders of my spiritual master, I have come here. Text 133. Siddha Prapti Kaile Goshani Agya Kaila More Krishna Chaitanya Nikate Rahi Sevya Tanhare. Translation. Just before his departure from this material world to attain the highest perfection, Isvara Puri told me that I should go to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and render service unto him. Text 134. Kashishvara Ashibena Sabatirtha Dekhiya Prabhu Agya Muni Ainu Soma Paredana. Translation. Kashishvara will also come here after visiting all the holy places. However, following the orders of my spiritual master, I have hastily come to be present at your lotus feet. Text 135. Roshani Kahila Purushvara Vatsalya Kare More Kripa Kari Moratani Pataila Tomare. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my spiritual master, Isvara Puri, always favors me with paternal affection. Therefore, out of his causeless mercy, he has sent you here. Text 136. Etasuni Sarvambhoma Prabhure Puchila Puri Goshani Sudra Sevaka Kanhe Tarakila. Translation. After hearing this, Sarvambhoma Bhattacharya asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Why did Isvarapuri keep a servant who comes from a Sudra family? Purport. Both Kashishvara and Govinda were personal servants of Ishvarapuri. After Ishvarapuri's demise, Kashishvara went to visit all the holy places of India. Following the orders of his spiritual master, Govinda immediately went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for shelter. Govinda came from a Sudra family, but because he was initiated by Isvarapuri, he was certainly a Brahmana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya here asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu why Isvarapuri accepted a disciple from a Sudra family. According to the Smriti Shastra, which gives directions for the management of the Varnashram institution, a Brahmana cannot accept a disciple from the lower castes. In other words, a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Sudra cannot be accepted as a servant. If a spiritual master accepts such a person, he is contaminated. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya therefore asked why Isvarapuri accepted a servant or disciple born of Sudra family. In answer to this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied that his spiritual master, Isvarapuri, was so empowered that he was as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As such, Isvarapuri was the spiritual master of the whole world. He was not a servant to any mundane rule or regulation. An empowered spiritual master like Ishvarapuri can bestow his mercy upon anyone, irrespective of caste or creed. The conclusion is that an empowered spiritual master is authorized by Krishna and should be considered to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. That is the verdict of Viswanath Chakravarti. Saksha Dharitvena Samasta Shastrai. An authorized spiritual master is as good as Hari, the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If Hari is free to act as he likes, an empowered spiritual master is also free. As Hari is not subject to the criticism of mundane rules and regulations, the spiritual master empowered by him is also not subjected. According to Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya 7.11, Krishna Shakti Vinha Nahe Tara Travartana. An authorized spiritual master empowered by Krishna can spread the glories of the holy name of the Lord, for he has power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the mundane world, anyone possessing his master's power of attorney can act on behalf of his spiritual master. Similarly, a spiritual master empowered by Krishna through his bona fide spiritual master should be considered as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. This is the meaning of Saksha Dharitvena. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore describes the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the bona fide spiritual master as follows. Text 137. Prabhu kahe isvara aya parama svatantra isvarera kripa nahe vera paratantra. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master, Isvarapuri, are completely independent. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Isvarapuri is not subjected to any Vedic rules and regulations. Text 138. Isvarera kripa jati kuladi namane vidhurera gare Krishna karila bojane. Translation. The mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not restricted to the jurisdiction of caste and creed. Vidura was a Sudra, yet Krishna accepted lunch at his home. Text 139. Sneha lesha peksha matra Shri Krishna kripara snehaya sahana kare svantantra achara. Translation. Lord Krishna's mercy is dependent only on affection. Being obliged only by affection, Lord Krishna acts very independently. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is merciful, but his mercy does not depend on mundane rules or regulations. He is dependent only on affection and nothing else. Service to Lord Krishna can be rendered in two ways. One can serve the Lord in affection or in veneration. When service is rendered in affection, it is the Lord's special mercy. When service is rendered in veneration, it is doubtful whether Krishna's mercy is actually involved. If Krishna's mercy is there, it is not dependent on any prescribed caste or creed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to inform Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that Lord Krishna is the spiritual master of everyone, and he does not care for mundane caste or creed. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cited the example of Lord Krishna's accepting food at the house of Vidura, who was a Sudra by birth. By the same token, Iswara Puri, an empowered spiritual master, could show mercy to anyone. As such, he accepted Govinda, although the boy was born in a Sudra family. When Govinda was initiated, he became a Brahmana and was accepted as Ishvara Puri's personal servant. In the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, Sri Sanatana Goswami states that if one is initiated as a master, he immediately becomes a Brahmana. A pseudo-spiritual master cannot transform a person into a Brahmana, but an authorized spiritual master can do so. This is the verdict of Shastra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all the Goswamis. Text 140. Maryada hoite koti shukha sneha acharane paramananda yayara namasravane. Translation. In conclusion, dealings in affection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead bring happiness many millions of times greater than dealings with Him in awe and veneration. Simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord, the devotee is merged in a transcendental bliss. Text 141. Etabali Govindera Kaila Alingana Govinda Karila Prabhura Charana Vandana. Translation. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Govinda, and Govinda in turn offered his respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Text 142. Prabhu kahe bhattacharya karaha vichara gurura kinkara hoya manya se amara. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then continued speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Consider this point. The servant of the spiritual master is always respectable for me. Text 143. Tanhare apana sheva karaite na yuyaya guru agya diyachena kikari upaya. Translation. As such, it is not befitting that the Guru's servant should engage in my personal service. Yet my spiritual master has given this order. What shall I do? Purport. If a Guru's servant or disciple becomes godbrother to another disciple, they respect one another as Prabhu or master. No one should disrespect his godbrother. For this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya what to do about Govinda. Govinda was the personal servant of Iswara Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master. Iswara Puri ordered Govinda to become Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal servant. So what was to be done? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was therefore inquiring from Bhattacharya, an experienced friend. Text 144. Bhattakahe gurura agya haya balavan guru agyana langhiye shastra pramana. Translation. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, the order of the spiritual master is very strong and cannot be disobeyed. That is the injunction of the Shastras, the revealed scriptures. Text 145. Sa shushuvan matari vargavena pitur niyogat tuharutam dvishadvat pratiya grihid agraja shashanam tad agya gurunam hya Abhicharaniya. Translation. Being ordered by his father, Parasurama killed his mother, Renuka, just as if she were an enemy. Lakshmana, the younger brother of Lord Ramachandra, immediately engaged himself in the service of his elder brother and accepted his orders. The order of the spiritual master must be obeyed without consideration. Purport. This is a quotation from the Puranas, Raghuvamsa 14.46. Lord Ramachandra's statement to Sita, given below, is from the Ramayana, Ayodhya Kand 22.9. Nirvicharam Gurur Agya Maya Karya Mahatmana Shreyohi Eva Bhavyachascha Mama Chaiva Vishashata. Translation. The order of a great personality, like a father, must be executed without consideration, because there is good fortune in such an order for both of us. In particular, there is good fortune for me. Text 147. Tabe Mahaprabhu Tanre Kaila Angikara Apana Shri Anga Sevaya Lila Adhikara. Translation. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Govinda and engaged him in the service of his personal body. Text 148. Prabhura Priya Bhritya Kari Sabe Kare Mana Sakala Vaishnavera Govinda Kare Samadhana. Translation. Everyone respected Govinda as the dearest servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Govinda served all the Vaishnavas and saw to all their needs. Text 149. Chotabara Kirtaniya Dui Hari Dasa Ramainandai Rahe Govindera Pasa. Translation. Both Haridas Senior and Haridas Jr., who were musicians, as well as Ramai and Nandai, used to stay with Govinda. Text 150. Govindera Sange Kare Prabhura Sevana Govindera Bhaksha Shima Nayaya Ramana. Translation. They all remained with Govinda to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, no one could estimate the good fortune of Govinda. Text 151. Aradine Mukunda Datta Kahe Prabhurastane Brahmananda Bharati Aila Tumara Darshane. Translation. The next day, Mukunda Datta informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahmananda Bharati has come to see you. Text 152. Agya Deha Yadi Tanre Aniye Etai Prabhu Kahe Guru Tenha Yaba Tandratani. Translation. Mukunda Datta then asked the Lord, shall I bring him here? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Brahmananda Bharati is like my spiritual master. It is best that I go to him. Text 153. Etabali Mahaprabhu Bhaktagana Sange Shali Aila Brahmananda Bharati Raage. Translation. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees came before the presence of Ramananda Bharati. Text 154. Varamananda Pariyache Mrugacharambara Tahadeki Prabhu Dukha Aila Antara. Translation. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees approaching him, they saw that he was covered with a deerskin. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very unhappy. Purport. Ramananda Bharati belonged to the Shankara Sampradaya. The title Bharati indicates one of the 10 sannyasis in the Shankara Sampradaya. It is customary for a person who has renounced the world to cover his body with a deerskin or the bark of a tree. This is enjoined by Manu Samhita. However, if a sannyasi who has renounced the world simply wears a deerskin and does not spiritually advance, he is simply puffed up and conceited. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like to see Brahmananda Bharati wearing deerskin. Text 155. Dekhiyata chadma kaila yena dekhe nani mukundera pucheka anbarati goshani. Translation. Seeing Brahmananda Bharati thus attired, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pretended not to see him. Instead, he asked Mukunda Datta, "Where is Brahmananda Bharati, my spiritual master?" Text 156. Mukunda keha ei age dekha vidyamana Prabhu kahe tinha nahena tumi age yana. Translation. Mukunda Datta replied, "Here is Brahmananda Bharati in your presence." The Lord replied, "You are incorrect. This is not Brahmananda Bharati." Text 157. Anyera anya kahe nahi tomara jnana Bharati goshani kene paribena shama. Translation. You must be talking of someone else, for this is surely not Brahmananda Bharati. You simply have no knowledge. Why should Brahmananda Bharati wear deerskin? Text 158. Suni Brahmananda kare hridaye vichare mora charambara ei nabaya inhare. Translation. When Brahmananda Bharati heard this, he thought, "My deerskin is not approved by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Text 159. Bhalakahena charambara dhambhalagi pari charambara paridhane samsara natari. Translation. Thus admitting his mistake, Brahmananda Bharati thought, "He spoke well. I put on this deerskin only for prestige. I cannot cross over the ocean of Neshin simply by wearing a deerskin." Text 160. Aji hoite na pariba ei charambhara Prabhu Barishvara Anaila Janiya Antara. Translation. From today on I shall not wear this deerskin. As soon as Brahmananda Bharati decided this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understanding his mind, immediately sent for the robes of a sannyasi. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nimacharya Maharaj Ki Jai.